Welcome to Coffee Break. Thoughtful conversations for a busy world. Let's begin.
Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a sensation that I think it's going to be uncomfortably familiar to, well, every single person listening.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's 5:00 p.m. on a Friday. You're sitting at your desk, or maybe you're in your car or at your kitchen table, and your body is just vibrating, but not in a good way. You are physically depleted.
Yes. The Friday crash. It's a very specific physiological state.
It really is. Your eyes are dry, your brain feels like it has been put through a blender, and you have that specific kind of exhaustion that comes from adrenaline just crashing.
And you look back at your week.
Exactly. You look back at your week, you've attended, let's say 15 meetings. You've sent, conservatively, 200 emails. You've Slacked, you've Zoomed, you've coordinated, you have put out fires, you have run a marathon, but at a dead sprint.
Maximum effort.
Maximum effort. And yet, and here's the kicker, if I were to walk up to you in that exact moment and ask, what meaningful thing did you actually build this week? What did you move forward that genuinely matters to you? What's the answer?
Usually, it's silence. Or maybe a stuttered explanation about, keeping the lights on.
Right. It's that hamster wheel sensation. Maximum velocity, zero displacement. You are sweating, you're running, but the scenery never changes. And that tension, that kind of nausea of being busy but ineffective, is exactly what we're dissecting today.
I'm so glad we're getting into this.
We're looking at a stack of notes and research centered around this idea of the calendar audit, and we're specifically pulling from concepts in Coffee Break 044.
And this one hits different, Usually when we talk about productivity, we talk about optimization. How do I type faster? What's the best to-do list app? How do I squeeze 65 minutes into an hour?
The life hack approach. If I just drink this specific mushroom coffee at 4 a.m., I'll be Elon Musk.
Precisely. We treat time like it's a luggage case that we're just trying to zip shut by sitting on it.
Yeah.
But this source material, it's not about efficiency. It's about honesty. And honestly, it's a little bit dangerous.
Dangerous how?
Because it completely rejects the standard narrative that we are victims of our schedules. The core thesis we're looking at today is, well, it's uncomfortable. It effectively argues. Everyone says they don't have time. Their calendar usually proves that's a lie.
Wow. Okay, that feels like an accusation.
It's not an accusation. It's an evidence locker. The whole premise is that your calendar isn't a list of things you have to do. It's a mirror. It's reflecting who you actually are. And most of us, we're terrified to look in that mirror because we know the reflection doesn't match the picture we have in our heads.
So the mission for today is pretty clear then. We are going to strip away the excuses we make for our schedules. We're going to look at why we react to emails instead of planning our lives, why busyness is actually a drug we're all a little addicted to, and then how to perform a calendar audit without, spiraling into self-hatred.
That last part is so key. Without the guilt. Because guilt is just another distraction. It's a way to let yourself off the hook by feeling bad instead of actually changing your behavior.
That's a deep cut right there. Okay, so let's unpack this. I want to start with this concept from the source material called the gap, the chasm between our stated goals and our daily reality. This is something I struggle with constantly.
We all do. This is the root of the anxiety. It's the friction point. Think about it. If you walk down the street and ask 10 people, what are your top 3 priorities in life? What are they going to say?
They give you the Hallmark card answer: my kids, my physical health, and building my startup, or writing my novel, or deepening my spiritual practice, something noble.
Exactly. And here's the thing. They're not lying. They genuinely feel those things are important. In their hearts, those are the priorities. They identify as people who value those things.
Right. I identify as a healthy person.
But the source material asks us to do something really radical. It says, ignore the heart, ignore the intentions. Look at the data.
The cold, hard data of the calendar.
Imagine this scenario. A stranger breaks into your office. Let's call him the auditor. He doesn't know your name. He doesn't know your dreams. He doesn't know that you're planning to start a diet next week. He knows nothing about your intentions.
Okay.
All he has is your unlocked phone and your calendar app from the last 90 days. Based only on those colored blocks of time where your body actually was and what your attention was actually on, what would that stranger conclude your priorities are?
That is a terrifying thought experiment. Genuinely, if they looked at mine from last month, they wouldn't say family and creativity. They would say, my priority is Status update meetings, doom scrolling news sites, and formatting slide decks.
Exactly. The calendar is an objective ledger. It records where you spent your only non-renewable resource time. If you say family is number one, but the ledger shows 80 hours of work and maybe 4 hours of distracted phone-in-hand time with the kids, the ledger wins.
The math wins.
The math wins. The stranger would conclude that you are a person who is deeply, deeply passionate about administrative trivia and answering email.
That hurts. It really does. Because I feel like I care about the other stuff. But you're saying the feeling is basically irrelevant if the action isn't there.
This is a classic psychological concept. It's cognitive dissonance. It's the mental stress you experience when you hold two conflicting beliefs at the same time.
Okay, break that down for me.
Belief A is your identity. I am a healthy, family-oriented person. Belief B is the evidence from your calendar. I sat in a chair for 12 hours today, ate takeout at my desk, and missed my kid's bedtime.
And that dissonance, that conflict is painful. It makes you feel like a fraud, a hypocrite.
Exactly. It's an uncomfortable feeling. So what do we do to resolve that pain? We have two choices: change the behavior or change the belief. Changing the behavior, actually going to the gym, actually leaving work on time is hard.
So we go for the easier option.
We create a narrative, we rationalize, we change the belief, but only temporarily. We say, well, this was just a crazy week.
Oh, I know that one. Once I get past this product launch, everything will calm down.
Once Q4 is over, I'll get back to the gym. Once the kids are finally in school, I'll write the book. But the source material urges you to just scroll back in your calendar.
And you realize Q3 was crazy too. And Q2.
And the crazy week has actually been going on for 5 years.
The crazy week has been going on for 5 years. That one just hit me in the chest. I think I've been saying things will settle down next month since, like, 2018.
We all do it. It's a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
Because if we actually admitted to ourselves that this chaos is our normal, that this is our life, we'd be forced to confront the need for a massive change. And that's terrifying.
So by pretending it's a temporary state, we give ourselves permission to just endure it.
We do. But the calendar proves, day after day, that the exception is actually the rule.
Okay, so we've established that there's this massive gap. We say we want one life, but our calendar shows we're scheduling a completely different one. But why? That's the part I really struggle with. I consider myself a rational person. I know I should be working on the big project. I know I should go to the gym. Why do I voluntarily fill my calendar with garbage? Why am I the architect of my own misery?
This is where we have to move from the world of logistics into psychology. Because the answer isn't in your to-do list app, it's in your brain. The source material brings up a really powerful concept called the psychology of busyness.
And this is the idea of busyness as a hiding place.
Yes,
Yeah.
There's a very strong argument to be made that we aren't overwhelmed by accident. We are overwhelmed on purpose because busyness, it's a shield.
A shield against what?
Against the fear of the big task.
Yeah.
Think about the nature of the work you do. We can divide almost any task into two distinct buckets. Bucket A is high value, high fear.
Give me an example of a high-value, high-fear task.
Writing the strategy document for the entire next year. Having a really difficult performance review with an underperforming employee. Starting the blank page of your book. Making the cold calls you need to make to get your business off the ground.
Okay, yeah. Things that really move the needle.
They change your life or your business. But they are scary. They're terrifying.
Why are they so scary?
Because you might fail. You might write a bad chapter. The employee might get angry and yell at you. The strategy might be wrong. Bucket A requires vulnerability, it requires intense focus, and it carries the very real possibility of a negative outcome. It requires you to put your ego on the line.
I feel that every single time I sit down to do what I call real work, I get this tightness in my chest, this feeling of, what if I can't do this?
That's the fear. So your brain, in its infinite wisdom to protect you, offers you an alternative. Bucket B.
And what's in bucket B?
Low value, low fear. Answering email. Checking Slack messages. Reformatting the font on a slide deck. Organizing your desktop icons. Researching the perfect software to use before you actually start the project.
Oh man, you're calling me out. I love organizing desktop icons. It feels so tidy. And researching software. I can spend days convincing myself that's productive work.
And that's the trap. It feels like work. Technically, it is work. You're expending energy, you're clicking things. But it is safe, completely safe. When you answer an email, you can't really fail. You get a little dopamine hit. Ding! Task complete. Ding! Someone needed me. Ding! I am essential.
It validates your existence without threatening your ego.
You just nailed it. It's the hero complex of the minor crisis. Reacting feels urgent. It feels like you're a firefighter. Oh, I'd love to write my book, but I have to put out this fire.
But usually the fire is just a client asking for a PDF they could have found themselves, or a colleague asking a question because they were too lazy to Google it.
But it lets you be the hero for 5 minutes. And more importantly, it gives you a bulletproof excuse for avoiding bucket A.
So we fill our calendar with the noise, with bucket B tasks, so that we have a valid alibi for why we didn't touch the scary stuff in bucket A.
Right. Busyness is the perfect alibi. It's socially acceptable. If you have a wide-open 4-hour block in your afternoon and you don't write your book, you have to sit with that. You have to face the fact that you might just be procrastinating or scared. You have to sit in the silence with your own feelings of inadequacy.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable.
Terribly. But if you're in back-to-back meetings from 1.00 to 500, you get to tell yourself a different story. You can say, I literally didn't have a spare second.
Yeah.
You get to be like a martyr instead of a failure.
That is dark. But it rings so true. It explains why we constantly check our phones. We're looking for a distraction for an incoming fire to save us from the silence.
Yes, because in the silence, the pressure of the big goal comes back. The blinking cursor on the blank page starts staring at you. It's easier to just see if anyone has emailed you.
And the calendar reveals this pattern. If you see a day that's just chopped up into 15-minute increments of syncs and touch bases and quick chats,
You have to ask the hard question, is this structure necessary? Or am I intentionally structuring my day to avoid the deep, silent focus where the real work actually happens?
we react because planning is boring and difficult. We react because it feels safer to be busy than to be effective.
And the culture rewards it. Being slammed is a status symbol. If you ask someone how they are and they say, so busy, it's like a humble brag. It means you're important.
It's true. If you said, actually, I'm feeling really relaxed and have a lot of free time, people would look at you like you're a slacker.
So we're incentivized both internally by our fear and externally by our culture to be busy. And that leads us directly to the language we use to describe this state, the phrase everyone loves, the phrase that gets us out of everything.
I don't have time.
I don't have time, the universal anthem of the modern adult.
I'd love to work out, but I don't have time. I'd love to start that side hustle, but I just don't have time. I'd love to read more books, but seriously, who has the time? The source material takes a sledgehammer to this phrase, doesn't it?
It does. It essentially says that the phrase, I don't have time, is almost always a lie. Or, at best, a complete misunderstanding of reality. The source argues that no time actually means not prioritized.
Now, hold on. I'm going to play the defense attorney for the listener here for a second, because there are people listening who are screaming at their speakers right now.
I'm sure.
Maybe they're a single parent working 2 jobs. Maybe they're a caregiver for an elderly relative. Maybe they're in a brutal crunch period at work where if they don't deliver, they get fired. They genuinely do not have discretionary time. Are we telling them they're lying?
That is a crucial distinction, and I'm really glad you brought it up. We are not in any way denying that real-world constraints exist. Everyone gets 24 hours. Some people have far more non-negotiable obligations within those hours than others. That is a fact.
Okay, good.
A single mom has fewer discretionary hours than a 22-year-old with a trust fund? We aren't ignoring privilege or circumstance. That's not the point. The point is about the language we use to describe the choices we make within our given constraints.
So it's about what we do with the time we do control, however small that is.
Exactly. Even within those tight constraints, the phrase, no time, is usually a mask for not a priority. It's rarely about a lack of hours existing, but rather a lack of clarity on what matters most in the moments we can control. And this really comes down to what the source calls the yes problem.
The yes problem, what's that?
When you look at a calendar that is completely full, what you're seeing is a record of 1,000 yeses. Yes to that meeting. Yes to that extra project. Yes to that coffee chat. Yes to helping your neighbor move a couch. When you say, I don't have time for X, what you're actually saying is, I have already said yes to A, B, and C, and by doing so, I have decided that A, B, and C are more important than X.
That stings a bit. It removes the victimhood from the equation. It forces you to own the trade-off you made.
It does. And the source material has this one analogy that I think just ends the argument every single time. It's the burst pipe analogy.
Oh, I love this one. Walk us through it.
Okay, so imagine you tell me, I am completely slammed. I am too busy. I absolutely cannot find one single hour this week to work on my long-term business strategy. Your calendar is a brick wall. It's impossible.
Right. Zero margin. Every minute is accounted for. I'm booked solid.
Now imagine you go home tonight and a pipe has burst in your kitchen. Water is flooding everywhere. It's a complete disaster. You have to call the emergency plumber. You have to start moving furniture. You have to rip up the soaking carpet. The whole thing takes 3 hours to sort out tonight, and then another 2 hours the next day dealing with insurance and cleanup.
A total nightmare scenario.
A nightmare. But here's the question. Did you do it?
Of course. You have to. You can't just let your house flood. You deal with it.
Exactly. You found the time. Those 5 hours didn't magically appear out of thin air. You didn't get a 29-hour day from the time gods. You took that time from somewhere else. You canceled the non-essential meetings. You skipped the gym. You ignored the emails. You ordered takeout instead of cooking. You ruthlessly deprioritized everything else because the pipe was the new #1 priority.
So the time existed all along. It was just allocated to other things.
The time always exists. It's the allocation that changes based on urgency and priority. The source's big takeaway here is profound. The goal is to start treating your long-term goals, your health, your strategy, your passion project, with the same urgency as a burst pipe.
That's a powerful mental shift because we treat the urgent stuff, the ringing phone, the angry email from a client like a burst pipe. We drop everything. But the important stuff, our health, our dreams, that's like a slow leak inside the wall.
What a perfect way to put it. It's rotting the foundation of your life, but because it's not spraying water in your face right this second, we say, I'll get to it later, I don't have time to fix it.
And that's why the calendar is the ultimate truth teller. It shows you, in black and white, what you are treating as a burst pipe and what you are treating as a slow leak.
When you say, I don't have time to exercise, what you are technically literally saying is, I have filled my available time with other activities like work or scrolling social media or commuting, and I have decided that those things are currently a higher priority than my physical health.
Ouch! When you put it that way, it sounds like a conscious choice.
It is a choice.
Yeah.
It's an uncomfortable one, and maybe it's a subconscious one, but it is a choice. And you know what? Sometimes that's the right choice. If you have a massive deadline that pays your mortgage, maybe work is more important than the gym this week. That's fine.
So the goal isn't to be perfect, but to be honest.
Exactly. Stop lying to yourself. Stop using the passive victim language of I don't have time. Use the active, empowered language of choice. Say, I am choosing to prioritize this project over my workout right now.
It takes the morality out of it. It's not, I'm a bad person for skipping the gym. It's, this is my strategic allocation of resources for today.
Precisely. It empowers you. Because if you chose to prioritize work today, you can also choose to prioritize your health tomorrow. No time implies you are helpless. Not a priority implies you are in charge.
Okay, so this is a lot. We've established that we're probably lying to ourselves. We've established that we use busyness to hide from the scary work. And we've established that no time is really a priority problem. Now, the listener's probably sweating a bit. They're looking at their phone with suspicion.
As they should be.
How do we actually fix this? Where do we start? The source suggests a process, an audit.
Yes, the audit. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is the practical application. But before we get into the mechanics, we have to reiterate the most crucial caveat that the source mentions. And it mentions it over and over.
Which is?
You must do this without guilt, without shame, without self-flagellation.
Why is the without guilt part so important? I feel like if I see a report that I've been wasting, say, 10 hours a week, guilt is the natural and maybe even correct reaction. I want to punish myself for being lazy.
I get that instinct, but it's counterproductive. Guilt shuts down the prefrontal cortex. It triggers a shame response. And when human beings feel shame, our instinct is to look away. We want to close the app. We want to hide. We want to stop the audit.
So shame makes you quit before you can even find a solution.
Exactly. If this exercise turns into a session where you just beat yourself up for being lazy or undisciplined, you will stop doing it and nothing will change. The source says you have to approach this like a scientist, not a judge.
I like that framing. Be a scientist. You're just dispassionately observing data points. Interesting. This subject appears to have spent 4 hours on TikTok on Tuesday afternoon. Not, the subject is a worthless loser for spending 4 hours on TikTok.
Exactly. Curiosity opens up the possibility of change. Shame shuts it down completely. So here's the method the source suggests. You need to open up your calendar and look at the past 2 weeks.
And critically, it has to be your actual calendar, right? Not the one you plan.
Correct. This is so important. Not the ideal week you beautifully mapped out on Sunday night with your color-coded blocks for yoga and deep work and novel writing. No. Look at what actually happened. Where were you? What did you do? If you don't track your time perfectly, you have to be a detective. Look at your sent email folder, your browser history, your phone's location data. Reconstruct the crime scene.
Reconstruct the crime scene of your last 2 weeks. I love that. And what kind of patterns, what kind of clues are we hunting for?
The source highlights a few specific types of what it calls time leakage. The very first one to look for is overbooking.
This is the delusion pattern.
It's pure delusion. Look for the days that were realistically mathematically impossible from the very start. The days where you have 8 hours of meetings scheduled back-to-back, a to-do list that you know takes at least 6 hours, and you somehow thought you'd get it all done by 5:00 p.m. and feel great.
I have those days every week. You feel behind from the moment you wake up.
And seeing that visually on the calendar can be a huge aha moment. You realize, oh, I'm not bad at time management. I'm bad at basic math. I tried to fit 14 hours of stuff into an 8-hour day.
That's actually really comforting. It's not a moral failing. It's just a calculation error. Okay, so we look for overbooking. What else?
The next pattern is what the source calls the phantom blocks. These are the vague, undefined blocks of time. Maybe you had a 2-hour block on Wednesday afternoon just labeled work or project prep. The question is, what actually happened in that block?
That's always where I fall into the internet wormhole. 100% of the time. I check the news, then I'll check my email again, then I'll see a link and scroll social media for a bit, then I'll reorganize my desktop icons, I'll get a snack, I'll stare at the wall.
Exactly. Vague goals produce vague results. If the calendar just says work, your brain will default to whatever is easiest and most distracting. But if the calendar said draft the first 500 words of the Q3 marketing report, you have a fighting chance. The audit helps you spot where a lack of definition turned into wasted time.
It's about giving your future self clear instructions instead of a vague suggestion.
Absolutely. And the third major pattern to look for, this was a big one, it's the OPP pattern.
OPP?
Other people's priorities. Go through your calendar, look for every single meeting, call, or commitment that involved another person. And for each one, ask the brutal, honest question. Why did I say yes to this?
And the honest answer is usually because I wanted to be nice, or I didn't want to look unhelpful, or I was afraid of the social awkwardness of saying no.
It's a boundary issue, plain and simple. When you look at a week that is chopped up into confetti, 30 minutes here, 15 minutes there, a quick sync up there, that is a visual representation of you prioritizing other people's needs and agendas over your own focus.
Some writers call that Swiss cheese days. Your day is full of holes, and you can't get any deep, meaningful work done in the holes of the cheese.
It's a perfect metaphor. So the audit is simply the process of highlighting these patterns. You're saying, okay, here is where I was delusional with my math, here is where I was too vague with my intentions, and here is where I was a people pleaser and let my boundaries collapse.
You're just mapping the terrain. You're figuring out where all the time is actually going.
You can't navigate to a new destination if you don't have an accurate map of where you're currently standing. The audit is that map.
Okay, so let's say we've done the audit. We've looked at the last 2 weeks, we've suppressed the urge to cry, and we've identified the patterns. Now comes the hard part. How do we move to realignment? How do we actually fix the broken system?
The source is very, very specific on this point, and it might be counterintuitive. The first rule of realignment is do not burn it all down.
Wait, really? Because my instinct is to do exactly that. To buy a brand new planner, declare that I'm going to start waking up at 4 a.m. and completely revolutionize my life starting Monday, New week, new me.
And that is precisely why most productivity resolutions fail by Wednesday morning. The source warns very strongly against extreme scheduling changes. If you have never woken up at 4 a.m. consistently in your entire life, putting them on your calendar for next week is just scheduling a failure. You're setting yourself up to fail again.
So rigid, all or nothing systems are destined to break.
Almost always. Because life is messy. A crisis will happen, a kid will get sick, and your perfect rigid system will shatter, and then you'll feel like a failure and abandon the whole thing.
So no monk mode or joining the 5 a.m. club if that's not who you are right now.
Right yet, anyway. The source advocates for small versus extreme changes, tiny incremental pivots. The goal is to make changes that are so small they feel almost too easy to do.
Give me an example of a small pivot that actually works.
Okay, let's say your audit reveals that deep work is your biggest missing priority. You want to do strategy work, but your days are filled with reactive readings. The extreme burn-it-all-down changes, I will block out 4 hours every single morning for strategy, and no one can bother me.
Which will immediately get overrun by an urgent request from my boss, and then I'll get frustrated and quit the whole system.
Exactly. The small pivot is this. Tomorrow morning, I will schedule just 30 minutes of deep work before I open my email client. That's it, just 30 minutes.
That feels almost too easy. It feels insignificant.
That is the entire point. It has to be defendable. You can defend 30 minutes against the chaos of the world. You can tell your boss, I'm just finishing something up. I'll be online at 9:30. You probably can't defend 4 hours. Once you successfully defend and establish the habit of claiming that 30 minutes for a week, then maybe you can expand it to 45. But you start with something you can actually win.
It sounds like it's about rebuilding trust with yourself again, isn't it? If I put something on my calendar for me, I have to prove to myself that I'll actually follow through.
That's a huge part of it. When you put a block on the calendar, it needs to be a promise you keep to yourself. If you constantly break your appointments with yourself, like the go to the gym block you delete every day, you train your brain to ignore your own calendar. It becomes meaningless background noise.
But I would never just not show up for a meeting with my CEO.
So why do you consistently not show up for the meeting with yourself?
That calls for a moment of silence. Why do I cancel the meeting with myself? It's because, deep down, I don't respect my own time as much as I respect theirs.
And that is the fundamental belief we're trying to change. The other practical tool the source mentions is what it calls the priority filter.
This sounds like it's designed to tackle the yes problem we talked about earlier.
It is. It's a simple mental checklist. Before you accept any new meeting or add any new task to your list, you have to run it through this filter. You ask yourself one question: does this align with the priorities I claim to have?
And if the answer is no, what do?
Then you have a choice, a conscious choice.
Yeah.
You can say no to the task. You can say, I'm sorry, I can't take that on right now. Or you can accept it. But you have to do so with honesty. You have to admit to yourself that your priorities have temporarily changed.
So you stop lying to yourself. You stop saying, my health is my #1 priority, while simultaneously accepting a last-minute lunch meeting that forces you to eat fast food at your desk.
Exactly. In that moment, you either protect your priority and decline the meeting, or you accept the meeting and admit to yourself, okay, for today, this meeting is the #1 priority. The honesty is what matters.
That feels incredibly liberating. It closes the gap. It's about slowly, deliberately merging the stated goals with the daily reality. You want the calendar to eventually look like a true portrait of the person you actually want to be.
That's the whole game. Alignment isn't about being a perfect, hyper-productive robot. It's about the calendar matching the intent. If you want to be a workaholic who builds a billion-dollar company, that's great. Let your calendar show 100-hour work weeks. If you want to be a deeply involved parent who never misses a soccer game, great. Let the calendar show those games blocked out in bright red. The stress doesn't come from the work. It comes from the mismatch.
The stress comes from the mismatch. I think that's the bumper sticker for this entire deep dive.
It really is. We are all just trying to merge the person we want to be with the person the calendar data says we are.
This has been such a powerful conversation. I feel like I need to go and apologize to my calendar for ignoring its wisdom for so long. Let's try to recap quickly before we send everyone off to do their own, probably painful, audits.
Sure. So step 1, you have to accept that your calendar is a mirror. It shows your true priorities, not your good intentions.
Step 2, recognize that busyness is often a hiding place, a shield. We do the easy, loud work to avoid the quiet, scary work that actually matters.
Step 3, reframe your language. No time almost always means not prioritized. If the pipe burst, you'd find the time. So treat your real goals like a burst pipe.
And step 4, audit your past 2 weeks without guilt. Approach it like a scientist. Look for the patterns, the delusion of overbooking, the vagueness of phantom blocks, the people-pleasing of OPP, and then make small, realistic adjustments to realign.
That's it. It's not about becoming a robot. It's about becoming honest with yourself.
I love that. Time management isn't just productivity. It's honesty. That's the phrase that's going to stick with me.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave the listener with one final provocation, something to carry with them into the week ahead.
Lay it on us.
We talked earlier about the idea of a stranger looking at your phone. I want you to actually visualize that. For the next few days, don't try to change your schedule yet. Just watch it. Observe it like a scientist studying a subject.
Okay, so just observation mode. No changes yet.
No changes. And at the end of the week, I want you to ask yourself this question. If a complete stranger looked at your calendar from this past week without knowing your name, your dreams, or any of your excuses,
Right.
what would they say is the most important thing in your life?
Wow.
Would they say it's your children? Would they say it's your art, your health, your community? Or will they look at the data and be forced to conclude that the most important thing in your life is answering email?
And does that answer scare you?
If it does, that's good. That fear, that discomfort, that's the beginning of real change. Because as the author Annie Dillard famously said, how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. There is no later, there is no someday, there's only this Tuesday and this Wednesday. That collection of days, that is your life.
That is a heavy but necessary thought to end on. Thank you, as always, for helping us unpack this.
My pleasure. It was a great conversation.
And to everyone listening, good luck with the audit. Be brave, be honest, and we will see you in the next deep dive.
Thanks for spending this time with us on Coffee Break. If this conversation stayed with you, you can find more episodes here on the channel. Until next time, take care.